Hello, it's Alex. Thank you so much for joining me. Today's video is going to be a review of my new coat, which is the Traveller coat from Bella Loves Patterns, and maybe some things to bear in mind if you wanted to make it. But generally, I have very much enjoyed making this coat. As I say, I am super pleased with it. I hope you'll forgive me. It was snowing yesterday, so I have cheated and I am wearing something that I didn't make. I know, I'm wearing a jumper. I did make the trousers though. Anyway, yeah, I really like the style of the coat. It's kind of almost as close to tailoring as you're going to get with the home sewing patterns, without actually being tailoring, which is probably a bit daunting. I really like, there's lots of things I really like about it. I really like, in terms of the design, I really like the length of the coat. I personally really like a longer length. I feel like it gives a bit more of a, probably luxury is the word I'd say, a bit more of a luxury look. I'm 5'7". This pattern actually comes in two height options, so yeah, I'm in the kind of taller height option. I think the other one is around about 5'3", something like that. So I appreciate people that are shorter don't always like a long coat, but I personally really do. It has dropped shoulders, which means, it means really that you've not got to worry about getting the shoulder, there's a siren going off, not got to worry too much about getting the shoulder fit right because the seam is lower down. But at the same time, for me, I find that a dropped shoulder is a little bit more flattering than a raglan. You know, if you don't want to have a set-in sleeve, raglan is the other option, isn't it? And that doesn't suit all figures. I'm reasonably broad across the shoulders, so I'm okay with the raglan, but I know some people find them problematic. But this with the drop sleeves I find to be really nice. I really like the, what are these called? These sort of sleeve tabs, shoulder tabs. Really like that feature. Obviously I'm wearing it open, which to be honest is generally how I would wear it. I'm not somebody that tends to, I know it sounds bad, I live in the freezing cold north, but I just don't tend to really do my coats up very often. But obviously I can if I wish to. Is that kind of double-breasted? I don't know that it is double-breasted, but anyway, hold on, that way. Now, I did put my buttons on a little bit tight, so I'm hoping that they are going to loosen up a little bit and I won't have to re-sew them on. So excuse me fiddling around. This one here that I'm doing here has a shank and a button on the inside, which is pretty much what does the coat up. And there we go. Yeah, I definitely didn't give enough to allow for that. I did do the trick of putting a couple of toothpicks under the button when you sew it on, which is in the instructions. But yeah, you know, it's like sewing the buttons on is one of the last things you do, and I probably got a bit impatient and probably should have made that a little looser. So yes, I'm just hoping that with a bit of wear I won't need to. And also, as I said, I don't tend to button coats up too much anyway. But obviously I can, it is belted. I think for me, because I don't have the most defined waist in the world, I tend not to kind of belt things so much because, yeah, I don't have that kind of nipped in, cinched look. But obviously, if it's a freezing cold day, then I can do that. It's got a vent at the back, which obviously is for ease of walking. If you didn't see my earlier videos when I was getting the fabric for it, I bought the fabric from Minerva when they had their 20% sale. So the outer fabric is a Lady McElroy, I think it's 80% wool. I wanted to get as large a percentage of wool as possible because obviously The larger the percentage of wool, the warmer the coat is. Originally my lining fabric was also from Minerva and was also coincidentally a Lady McElroy fabric, but unfortunately I had a bit of a problem. I did mention it a couple of videos back. When I came to sew the inside of this coat, where the lining was, you have a section at the back where the vent is, where on one side you have a little bit of excess fabric and on the other side you take it away. And I had sewn it all up and got it the wrong way around. When I went to see if I could sort of just patch it in, to be honest, I just didn't have any fabric left. I think, knowing me, I probably slightly under-ordered the fabric. And I literally didn't even have a sliver left to patch that in, or not to do it neatly. So I decided that it was just going to bug me if I always had a slight bodge job on the inside. So I thought, okay, just suck it up and reorder the fabric from Minerva. I paid for next day delivery, and then a weekend, I think, and then on the weekday I got a message saying that it was out of stock until middle of December or something. So rather annoyingly, they were great. I cancelled the order and had to find different lining fabric, which meant that I then had to completely construct the entire lining from scratch again. I could have waited, of course, but I just wanted to get on with it. So now the lining that I have is, it's a viscose lining again. You know me, I'm not a fan of the acetate lining. But this time I bought it from Fabworks. It's a little bit lighter than the original, but no, I'm really happy with that. The advantage of ordering from Fabworks is if you order by, I think it's lunchtime, usually it's next day delivery, and on this occasion it was. So yeah, I got an email Monday morning saying out of stock with Minerva, and by Tuesday afternoon this had arrived from Fabworks. Hallelujah. So it was a bit of a delay. So yeah, I'm really, really happy with both of them in terms of the fabric. I do feel like it's showing some lack of imagination that I've gone for pretty much the same colour as the pattern or the sample that's made for the pattern itself. But that's kind of coincidental. I was always planning to make a brown, or wanted something ideally a bit gingery actually, but still really happy with this. So that colour was in my plans anyway. And then in terms of the pattern itself and the instructions, I have to say it's fabulous. I have really, really enjoyed making this coat. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it's described as advanced or intermediate, somewhere along those lines, and it probably is. If you're somebody that's maybe made a coat before, it might be worth tackling. It's not a beginner pattern, but having said that, it is absolutely chock full of information and some excellent techniques. It could potentially be a little bit overwhelming when you first get it. I looked at it and went, whoa, there's a lot here. There's a lot in terms of the requirements, because you have your fabric and you have your lining fabric, but quite a large percentage of the coat is fused. So you've got a lot of woven interfacing. You also, after you've fused it, you then also put stay tape on any of the straight seams, and fusible bias tape on, things like your sleeve where it's curved. So that can be a bit overwhelming, but I would say that this is one of those where you really just need to kind of take a deep breath, have a cup of tea and take it one step at a time. I pretty much took an entire afternoon / possibly even 2/3 of a day just to get everything prepped. I couldn't find woven interfacing locally to me. I had a little bit at home, but it was white, and I've learned that mistake before. If you interface something dark like this with white interfacing, when you come to cut your buttonholes, it's really annoying because you end up with a bit of white poking through. So I wanted black. And I actually found it from a company called Create in Colour who sell through eBay. Alison, who runs that shop, was a regular on our Clubhouse chats, and she has a really good fabric shop, not just things like interfacing and stuff. She has a great fabric shop. She sells through eBay. Obviously I'll link it. And I thought, if Alison has chosen this woven interfacing, I trust that it'll be a really good quality one. And sure enough it was. And if you've watched any of my videos before, you know I hate fusible interfacing. So yeah, I was a bit nervous. I did a couple of little tests first, and it was all absolutely fine. It recommends block fusing, which I did. Tips on how to get that right, things like using a piece of the self fabric to press against. Quite a lot of, I did do a coat making tips video probably a couple of years ago now, because I found that quite a lot of the coat sewing patterns and the subsequent instructions tend to simplify things, and I guess that's because they want to try and make it more accessible and not to be overwhelming. But I found that there were sort of extra things that I was trying to remember myself when I make coats. But with these instructions, I really didn't need to do that, because all those little extras were there and then some. So I learned some new techniques as well. It's kind of as close to tailoring without going into full-on tailoring. So I really enjoyed it. Great information on how to get these kind of roll lines here, really nice. Yeah, I did everything by the book. I did all my thread tracing. I did tailor's tacks, no cheating with chalk. You definitely do not want to print this pattern out at home. I mentioned before that I sent mine off and utilised the oversized pattern printing at Fabworks, and if you've got access to that, or it comes as an AO file as well, you really you will lose the will to live if you attempt to print this out on A4 sheets at home. It really would take too long, so I would definitely get it sent out. But yeah, I literally followed the instructions to the letter. I did everything, all the tailor's tacks. Once you've constructed the majority of the coat, you basted and you've managed your turn of cloth. All the instructions are in there on how to do that. You basted everything so it sort of kind of comes together and gels together really well before you do your top stitching. A few months ago when we were doing Clubhouse, the topic at one day was what patterns would we like to see out there that we weren't seeing out there, sewing patterns. And lots of people said, once there's so much geared up for beginners, but once you get past that beginner stage and you want to sort of really get your teeth into something, there aren't as many patterns for that sort of end of the market. If that's what you're looking for, this is a great one. Although you're not going to get it done in a weekend, it's going to take some time. So yeah, lots of prep involved with this one. My press cloths that the ladies at Lulou Designs gave me were absolutely invaluable, particularly the organza one, because you can see through it. All of that kind of stuff. It's so much fun to do, it really was. I had the good sense to pre-order or order some buttons. I didn't have any in my stash, which I was quite surprised by. So I ordered some buttons, some horn buttons to arrive. Really annoyingly though, when I only had a quick glance at them when they arrived, and when I got to use them, 3 of them had huge great scratches across them. And unfortunately, the company that I bought them from, and I'm not going to say who it is, and it's not a company I've ever used before, they said that they weren't scratches and that it was a natural effect from the horn. Whilst that, being blinded by the sun, whilst that may be true, they looked like big scratches, so I wasn't happy to use them. I just thought it would look wrong. But as luck would have it, last weekend I went to the Knitting and Stitching show in Harrogate, and as I was walking back to the station, I remembered that there's a shop in Harrogate called Duttons for Butttons. So I popped in there and bought these buttons, and yeah, that turned out really well in the end. So yeah, got them in time, because buttons are quite hard to find really, aren't they? That's why I love that fabulous shop, Textile Garden, but she didn't have any. So yeah, really, really good. There are a few kind of things I would bear in mind, or perhaps do a little bit differently. It really is worth doing the extra step of adding the stay tape and the bias stay tape around the edges. Now, I already had stay tape in my stash, but I got really good bias tape that I ordered from Amazon, so there'll be a link below for that. Again, it was really worth doing, and I haven't found that necessarily always very easy to find. So yeah, I'll put a link for that, or I'll put an image up, because it was really, really useful. The other thing that I did that was, yeah, I'm really pleased that I did, was that on Friday, I'd pretty much got to the end of making the coat, and I was at the point to just do a final press. And that always makes it a little bit nervous, because even following the tips that are in the instructions in terms of how to press everything, which a lot of it is about using the same fabric, you know, as a sort of cushion, I was really worried about getting indentations where you've got sort of bulk, you know, around the seams. I don't really like that. And you've got to do a lot of steaming to get things like the turn of cloth around the collar. The under collar is, by the way, drafted so that it's 2 pieces on the bias, which I always think is a really good sign when you see that in a coat pattern, because they don't always have that, and it really does make such a difference for how that collar turns under. But anyway, so what I did was I bought on Friday, in the Black Friday sale, I bought a handheld garment steamer from Amazon. And it was I did it a little bit on a whim, and it was on a, you know, special offer or something. But it's actually proving already to be quite invaluable. So I'm really pleased I did it. It's living in my sewing room now. Because, yeah, it was great to be able to sort of steam the life out of the collar and leave it overnight to set. It was also really good for, it has a crease attachment, so it was really good for being able to do the crease on the back vent without worrying too much about, again, you know, sometimes when you press something you get all the sort of lumps and bumps that are below it. And for me, as the owner of a white dog, it also has a really good attachment so you can get dog hair off. So yeah, that's an added bonus. But yes, steaming was really, really useful to do, and not always easy to do with your iron unless you've got a fancy schmancy one. And I also thought that in future I could use it for pre-shrinking wool fabric if you can't risk putting it in the tumble dryer. I did put mine in the tumble dryer, by the way. I said that I wasn't sure whether I was going to, but I did a little test. I did cut a 10 centimetre square of the wool fabric, threw it in the tumble dryer, so the fabric wasn't wet, but I threw it in with a really damp tea towel and measured it when it came out, and it was exactly the same size. So I knew I was safe to do that. So when I came to doing the main fabric, I bunged the whole lot, whatever it is, 3.5, 4 metres of fabric, with about 3 wet tea towels, just in case. But yeah, in future I could just use my garment steamer if I couldn't do that. So yeah, I'm really pleased with that. That was a really nice one. I'll link, if you're interested, I'll do a link below for the one I got. What else was there? Oh, that was the only couple of things that I did differently to the pattern, and one was buttonholes. I mean, buttonholes are just sent to try us, aren't they? This pattern has you sew the buttons on the, which side is it? On this side. Is it this side? No, it's this side, on the right side. Sew the buttons on first and then do the buttonholes. But actually, in typical fashion, the first buttonhole was beautiful, second one, nightmare. But actually for me, having the buttons already in situ, and you know how temperamental sewing machines are around buttonholes, it meant just another added sort of difficulty to navigate while I was making those buttonholes. So I think if I made it again, I would sew the buttons on second and do the buttonholes first. The only other thing was I wasn't wild about the method for doing the very centre front section, this part. When I sewed it, I was concerned that there would be a little bit of excess bulk here, and after I hemmed it and everything and left it to drape overnight, I did actually use my stand, you know, my what are they called, you know, my dressmaker's dummy for once. I left it overnight to hang, and then when I looked at it the next day, I just thought I'm not happy with that. It does look a bit bulky, and if you look at some of the photographs of other people that have made it, you see the same thing. So I did unpick it and trim some of that excess fabric off. I would just use a different method, a more standard method of, it's that bit where you have the facing on the inside. Yeah, just less bulk at the front there. But other than that, yeah, I really loved making this. It's a little bit heavy towards the end. I'd forgotten that, you know, when you're making coats. By the time you're getting to the top stitching at the end, you've got a lot of fabric to manhandle or woman handle. But yeah, really loved it. Even little things like the hanger. I hope you can tell I really enjoyed this. I was absolutely, I mean, I would honestly say that I think this has been my most favourite thing that I've sewn this year. Unless something amazing crops up in the next few weeks. Yeah, I think this is my make of 2021. I have really enjoyed it. I have been desperate to get it finished, and just in time for this cold weather, really. I also, not sewing, but I just wanted to show you really. I sort of started doing a bit of crochet this year, and I crocheted myself this scarf, which was slightly in mind, the coat was slightly in mind when I crocheted it. So yeah, I finished that this week as well. I can't now just sit of an evening and not fiddle around with something now. So yeah, crochet is my new thing. So I've got my crochet scarf and my handmade coat, and I've got my favourite handbag. So this was kind of in mind. I just thought, that's it, I can swan around South Manchester, snug as a bug in a rug, as your mum would say. So yeah, really pleased with all of this. This, by the way, is from a pattern company called Two of Wands. I think it's called Rosebridge scarf, something like that. Again, I'll put a link. And so that's it for the coat. And then plans-wise, I was approached by a pattern company that are, well, I don't know if they're new, but new to me anyway, called Fayma. And they make sewing patterns that are tailored to your individual measurements, to your individual size. So I was intrigued by that. They asked me if I'd like to try one of their patterns, and they've also given me a discount code. So I haven't done it yet, but I thought I would tell you that this is kind of what I'm planning to do. I had a little look at their website, and I think I know of one other company that do this, make the pattern to your precise measurements, but I've never been overly inspired by what they had. But this website looked really good, huge range of patterns. Please, if anyone's used them, let me know how it turned out and how you found it, because I'd be really interested to know. But yeah, huge range of patterns, some nice coats. But yeah, not making another coat anytime soon. The other thing I really liked about their website is the sort of way they present it is quite fashiony, which is great, but sometimes with sewing patterns can be really frustrating, because sometimes by doing that kind of fashion shoot approach, you can't really see the detail in the pattern, which can be really annoying. I'm thinking fibre mood, by the way, when I'm thinking this. But these are really good. So they have that kind of approach, but they also have line drawings, and yeah, the style lines are really clear. They have a 360 model type thing, so you have an image of the person wearing the garment and it does a little 360 turn. So really impressed with all of that. I I'm going to, I'm going to put my order in probably tomorrow now. So what you do is you have a measurement profile, you take a whole load of measurements. I think you take some photographs as well. As I say, I haven't done it yet. And you select your pattern, and then the pattern arrives as a PDF, tailor-made to your measurements. Now, we are always moaning about the lack of size inclusivity in the sewing world, so I'm really interested to see how this pans out. I've earmarked a pattern. I was so tempted by some of their shirts, but I decided the best thing to do was try and find a pattern that involved at least a bit of fit, just to sort of see how it pans out. So I've picked a dress, partly with Christmas in mind as well, and I think it's called the Royal Blade dress. It has fabulous sort of statement sleeves, and it has a dart and is sort of fitted around the bodice. So there's a little bit of fitting to deal with there. I've already ordered and had delivered some fabric that I bought in the Black Friday sales from Simply Fabrics, which is black jacquard with not a diamond, a chevron. It's got a chevron in it. Don't know how well that's going to photograph, but it's been a long time since I made anything in black. So I'm going to make that, as I say, with Christmas in mind, and also to sort of test drive that made to measure pattern service. So if you do fancy kind of giving it a go now, the discount code gives you 20% off, and it's Alex Judge Sews 25. Actually, I'm going to check that. Yep, Alex Judge Sews 25. And that gives you 25% off any of their patterns. Alternatively, stand by, give me a subscribe, I remembered, and then when I've made it and I can report back on what the whole process was like, and I'll make the dress and we can see whether there was an advantage to having it made to my measurements and how that all panned out. So I'll keep you posted. But yes, I would also really love to know anybody else that's used any of their patterns and how you found them to be. So please let me know in the comments below, that would be fabulous. So obviously that pattern is going to take, I won't even order it till tomorrow. I will send it off to be printed because that's how I roll these days. So I probably won't get going on that for a few days. I am desperate for some kind of basic tops at the moment. Round neck, jersey, sweatshirt. I'm thinking of making one of the Pattern Emporium tops. I think it might be the Besties tee, had a sort of slightly square neck. I made it out of yellow in the summer. So I'm thinking of like a square neck but long sleeves. So I'm going to have a bit of a batch of basic tops this week. I'm not going to buy any specific patterns. I've got plenty. I'll probably use the Megan Nielsen Jarrah and a couple of the Pattern Emporium ones because they are great for giving you lots of different options. And I've got plenty of fabric in my stash. Although I did order some black interlock, but we'll gloss over that. So that's my plans for the next little while. Don't know if I'll be doing a Friday sews on Friday. Depends how I've got on with making any tops this week. But if I've got something to show you, I'll pop back. If not, I'll be back pretty soon. Thank you very much for watching. I am now going to spend some time trying to get some nice photographs of my coat. All right, thank you very much. Bye-bye.